Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's Business Bites. This week, I'm joined by the fabulous Steve Newsham, who is the Regional Director of Regenda Homes. Good afternoon, Steve.
Hi, Lisa. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. It's not fair, all this social distancing, is it?
No, I like looking into the whites of people's eyes.
I know. It's nice to have a handshake and sit down over a nice coffee, isn't it? But things are getting ever more virtual, and yeah, a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of Teams meetings. I think Skype's gone now. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, I've been tied to quite a few of these, so it is a pleasure to see you. And thank you for joining us. I'm delighted to be sharing your story this week. For the purpose of our viewers and listeners, Steve, do you want to just give me a little bit of background on Steve and where he originated and how he flourished into the man he is today?
Okay, then it seems a long time ago, sort of 57 years ago was the start. So yeah, I'm originally from Preston, so got married, 5 kids, and I've always had like a really good work ethic. So wasn't particularly great at school, sort of didn't get many qualifications. Tried to go and do a bit of maths and English at college, but got bombed out after a few months, and then started on what's called a youth training scheme back in the day. Sort of,
YTSs.
The YTSs, yeah, £23.50 every week. So I actually grafted for really hard at Preston Council for 6 months. And by the end of that, obviously, my confidence and skills had improved. And then I got a job working in a landscaping department out on council estates, cutting grass and shrubs and all that sort of stuff. And that led me into sort of walking into a local housing office for a housing association one day. And I thought, ooh, that's a job for me. They seem to like helping people. And that was my sort of journey into housing. So collecting rent behind a counter and sorting out repairs. So it was right at this sort of the bottom level, as it were. So, and then obviously went to college, did my housing exams and just progressed from there. So I've worked for quite a number of housing associations across the Northwest. And for the last 15 years, I've worked for Regenda in a variety of different roles. But my focus now is on the work that Regenda are doing up in Fleetwood. So absolutely love Fleetwood. I'm dead passionate about Fleetwood. So I'm based there at the moment and delivering a massive regeneration programme.
Right, brilliant. Well, we'll hear more about that in a minute, but I'm just going to backtrack a little bit. So how old were you when you started at Preston Council?
16. Wow. No, sorry, I was 17 because I've gone to college straight from school, lasted about 4 or 5 months, got kicked out, and then ultimately ended up on the YTS scheme. So yeah, I was just 17.
Academia isn't for everyone, is it? You know, some people are much more creative. Some people like the practical start in life. How did the outdoor work, the landscaping and stuff suit you? Were you an outdoor person?
Oh, I was in summer, yeah, definitely. And then but not in winter and everything. So, and we was actually the depot was like on a farm in Walton Summit near Bamber Bridge. So he's up that way and everything. And you used to go to the farm and everything, the rats that were knocking around and the mice where all the grass seed was and everything. So It was just absolutely crazy. But you know, I don't know why. Sort of like I fancied getting into the housing office because I enjoyed what I did. You know, it was really good. But I think I was just probably starting to get a bit more mature and started to think a little bit longer term, realizing that if you want to get anywhere in life, you've got to have a bit of a plan as best you can and think forward. So I think that's why I ended up in the housing office.
Yeah, I think you know, there's not as many jobs for life today as there used to be. I remember, you know, we used to go and start at the Lecky board and you knew you were on for a 60-year career there until you took your pension out and went back. But today's generation very different, like to move around. And I think it's really important actually that you get that practical experience, physical experience, mental experience, because I think it is only really by the time you get 17, 18, 19, you start thinking, actually, I really enjoy this bit, or I enjoy this bit. And that's what seems to form those pathways. I think for you, Steve, what I love about that, because you are regional director, you are up there at the top, but you started at the very bottom. I mean, you've done, like you say, lots of different roles. And I think when somebody who's leading an organisation understands the processes underneath them inside out, I mean, I've built Lancashire from scratch. There's not any element that somebody could teach me about it. I would have to teach them. But it makes you a much more confident leader, don't you think, that what you can and can't, in reality, pull your teams around to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And sort of even when I sort of started in the housing game and everything, because I then wanted to do sort of like obviously my professional qualifications and my management qualifications, I had to like contribute to some of that. So, but because I was at like the lowest level, my wages weren't particularly that high. So I used to do other jobs at weekends. So I used to drive a bit of chauffeur for like wedding cars. I always had the bridesmaid's car. So I then got into selling women's perfume at perfume parties and everything. So it all sort of like gave me a bit of an extra income, which helped to support what I wanted to do. So, you know, I don't often think back to them days because obviously it's a long, long time ago. But when you do look back, I think you'll be really proud about yourself. And also, it's, you know, the values that I've instilled into my sort of like 5 kids and everything in terms of that work ethic, I can see that in them now. So
that's the job, isn't it, to pass them on. It's very funny, isn't it, how you can't kind of connect the dots going forward, only backwards, but when you look back you can see exactly where every path will lead you into the next.
Absolutely. I think my eldest lad, he's nearly 30, he's 29 now. He's never had what I would call a proper job. Sort of, he was actually at Blackburn Rovers as an apprentice at the academy, and then he got signed by Carlisle. So he's had like an apprentice contract for Blackpool Football Club. Then he went in to do a bit of modelling. Then he did some TV work. Now he's a DJ, but he's always worked, and I think he's now found his path, which is in the creative world and everything. So he's now sort of a tour manager for a DJ from the Northeast and everything. And he's as happy as Larry. He's not got loads of money at the moment, but he's never been out of work, and good on him for that.
And it helps when you get up every day and do something you love. And again, you can see it in your son, what you described, which is I had to trial a few things and get a bit of experience to go, oh, that's my forte, and head down that line. And, you know, that's something that both you and Regenda, Positive Footprints and others are working on to kind of create some more of those experiences and pathways for people. Before I get on to that, Steve, just going back to the Housing Association, obviously the pandemic hit us in sort of March time. How did it impact Regenda, and how did you respond?
Well, it's impacted in a number of different ways. So the Regenda Group, basically we're a regeneration business, and we've got about 7 businesses within the group. So the Housing Association is sort of the core business, and that's what brings the rental income. So we've got about 12,000 homes right across the northwest, and we concentrate in 3 regional areas, which is Merseyside, Greater Manchester, Cheshire, and Lancashire. So you've got 3 regional directors. I'm the one for Lancashire. So the other businesses that we've got within our organisation is we've got some charities and we've got some commercial businesses. And the profits that the commercial businesses will make, we're a not-for-profit organisation, so it's all ploughed back into our regeneration activity and our community activity. So we've not got shareholders that are putting money in the back pocket. It's all reinvested back into the communities. So as an example, a couple of our businesses, one's called Positive Footprints, that's actually based in Burnley, and they do careers-led programs at primary level in schools right across the country now. So obviously, because they're not going into schools, some of that income stream is dried up a little bit. And likewise, we also own a training company whereby traditionally we churn out about 1,200 apprenticeships every single year. Doing that face-to-face apprenticeships, traineeships, adult education learning, we've had to very, very quickly remobilize that into a virtual and an online service and everything. So I guess we've done things in sort of like 2 or 3 months that traditionally might have taken us 2 years, because you've got to be flexible and adapt. And luckily we are a big business. We've got like 700 employees and everything. So we've got some really good expertise across the business. So we have had to adapt to different ways of working. We did have to furlough quite a number of our maintenance staff, for example, in the early days that couldn't go into people's houses doing repairs, but we've now all remobilised. We had a couple of months of obviously the crisis management and making sure that our staff were safe and our tenants were safe. But now we've remobilised all of our services, including our construction sites in terms of the new build properties that we're building, and also the other activities across the group. So we're doing it in a different way, in a safe way. But obviously, we're back up and running now, and obviously now reconnecting with everybody, all our local partners and everything.
I was going to say, one of my questions there was going to be, how are the young people responding to these all these meetings being virtual? But they're already there. It's us dinosaurs that are having to catch up, isn't it?
Absolutely. And even like some of our best companies results, because obviously we're a best company employer, and some of the feedback sometimes from our youngsters is almost like, oh, you're a bit off the pace here, because they just expect that, don't they? They're living that virtual world anyway, don't they? So
Constantly.
It's been dead easy for them. So a lot of our call centre staff, we had to remobilise, so they're all working from home. So it's quite a big call centre. You know, we'll take sort of about 600-700 calls every day, but they're now all doing it from the home addresses and everything, and it's water off a duck's back for them, to be fair.
Yeah, it's been quite nice working from home, actually, Steve. And I think that 2 month reprieve, where it wasn't a complete reprieve, we were all crisis management. We were all having a look at readapting our businesses and how do we keep going. And, you know, I've watched so many, you know, event caterers now doing Friday night takeaways at a social distance. And, you know, we've supported as many as we can. It's been wonderful. There's been a lot of people that have had a chance to really look at their businesses and use that time to their advantage. And it's exciting to see all the entrepreneurship and innovative ideas that are coming out of it, and we're looking forward to sharing some of that. Are there any of those processes, Steve, that you're going to keep in place, do you think? Is the world changing? Are you going to keep staff working remotely?
Yeah, we'll inevitably do some of that, but our customer base is a very, very different demographics, ranging from the young people to obviously people in the 80s, 90s, or even 100s. So, you know, in terms of sort of customer access, we want to make sure there's a variety of different opportunities, and we still believe that face-to-face and some localised offices have certainly got the place, but from a carbon footprint point of view, for a efficiency value for money point of view, traditionally some of the meetings that you've been flying around across the northwest, you can obviously change to that more virtual world, because we've all got used to it so quickly, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at my time, Steve, was prior to this, you know, obviously we're in our cars, going out, knocking on doors, who wants to start sharing, spreading the word, etc. It's been very physical. And not because I wouldn't have done it digitally, but the world wasn't ready for it. So I'd say, well, I'll send you a Zoom meeting. It was like, no, just come over to our factory. It'll be fine. We'll show you around. But that's a lot of time. It's a lot of carbon. It's a lot of driving. It's a lot of downtime. And actually, the pandemic wiped that out. Everybody's quite happy to have those calls. So I think ultimately it's going to save a lot of businesses time and money. There's a lot rethinking. Do you want to share with me a little bit about what your charities are doing there and the impact that they're having and your passion for Fleetwood?
Oh, a passion for Fleetwood, yeah. So we've only got about 15 minutes, haven't we? So we could have about 15 days here, Lisa. Yeah, so Fleetwood. So Fleetwood's got its history, obviously. It's had some tough times in the past. But Regenda Group have developed a 10-year vision for our investments in Fleetwood, which is probably in the region of about £50 million. So it's not just about refurbishing all our housing association homes and building new homes. It's also the wider community activity, like upskilling, trying to create jobs. We actually start in the primary school, so we work in every primary school across Fleetwood, with the aim to raise the aspirations of kids at 8, 9 and 10. And that's one of our businesses called Positive Footprints. And we brought Positive Footprints to Fleetwood about 3 years ago now, and we just love what they did so much that we brought it into our group. So it's now part of the Regenda Group. So by the age of like sort of 10 kids in primary schools in Fleetwood, they've got like a CV, for example. So it's not called a CV, it's called what I'm brilliant at. But it's what we've been able to do is connect the businesses with the schools to form relationships. It's all with the view of ultimately getting kids into sort of, you know, career paths of their choice and understanding the world of work and, you know, introducing them to businesses through the career carousels that we do. So the Positive Footprints Raise an Aspiration programme is absolutely brilliant. So So we do that in primary schools. We also have got employment programs where we reach out to people that have never, ever had a job. They might be in the 40s, third generational unemployment, for example, so far away from the job market that we handle those to start to build a bit of resilience and confidence, you know, ultimately with the aim of getting people back into some form of work. And some people may never get into work, but it doesn't mean to say that they can't be sort of valuable contributors to their communities.
Exactly. How does that get received by those people, Steve, when you're approaching them at 40 years old and they've never worked and you're saying, I've got an opportunity for you here?
You can't go anywhere with trying to get them into any educational institutions. You've got to get them into the right environments, and you know, you've got to build that trust because, you know, I mean, some of them are forced for referrals from sort of like the job centre and everything to chat with us. But the way that we chat with people in terms of it's sort of non-institutionalised, it's a lady called Bev that we've got doing it. She's absolutely lovely. And she just, the starting point is to start to build a bit of a trusting relationship. And it builds from there. Yeah. And ultimately, we've got some pathways whereby we can take them through a number of different sort of like programs with the view to try to get them a bit of work or volunteering or whatever that might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible really that you're being that conduit for people, because I guess if you've got somebody whose mindset is very closed, because like you say, they are third generation that haven't worked and things like that, and you can give them an opportunity, which is something, let's say it's outdoor working, something they thoroughly enjoy, and then they get paid for it. There's a realisation there, isn't there, that actually not all jobs are set in stone.
Absolutely. And what I'm really lucky with in Fleetwood is sort of the partners across the town. You know, it's a very, very spirited community, and certainly through the pandemic, the community leaders like ourselves and the Lancaster County Council, Wyre Council, doctors, the church, and faith sector, we've all come together. So twice a week for the past sort of like 3 months. It's now like once a week, but we've all come together every Thursday night in terms of trying to support that wider community through this pandemic. And I have to say, some of this sort of like the community groups that have stepped up have done an absolutely amazing job in making sure people are looked after, they've been fed, they've been supported. The older people have been sort of like comforted through contact and, you know, and reassurance. So I think there's some benefits to coming out of what we've gone through for the past 3 months, which will just help us to prosper even more in the future.
Definitely. And some of those frontline charities are really suffering as well. They're not able to fundraise. I mean, we've been sharing stuff from Community Foundation for Lancashire and any larger organisations that will sub-fund smaller frontline charities for those vital services. I had an interview on here with the Chief Exec of Age UK a couple of weeks ago, and I was asking her how it's affected the elderly, and she said, well, they were lonely and isolated before, which was a stark realisation that we're getting a flavour of what they've had for quite some time. And it's massively important that we don't just be a housing association, but we reach out and try and make those communities better and stronger and make them flourish, because everybody ends up benefiting from that. I'd love to thank you on behalf of everybody, Steve, not just for what you do, but for what Regenda Homes and the charities and Positive Footprints do. I'm delighted that you're joining Lancashire, because it means we can spread that message far and wide across our members. Is there anything that the people listening to this, businesses or anybody else, is there anything that Regenda need in terms of support, help, people stepping forward?
I mean, I know there's a lot of sort of socially responsible businesses, and I think in Lancashire there's probably about 1,200 businesses, isn't there? And in Fleetwood, we're lucky that we've got some businesses to sponsor the Raising Aspirations programme in some of our schools. And you know, if there are any businesses out there because we deliver that programme right across Lancashire, it's not just a Fleetwood-based thing. You know, if there's any businesses out there that want to talk to us about contributing a little bit to their local school, it might be a business that's really well connected with the school, but if anybody wants to talk to us about giving a little bit of something back, it doesn't cost an awful lot. Please do get in touch with us.
Brilliant. And they'll be able to find your Lancashire page before you know it. And as you know, we're launching a youth platform called the Gen later this year. And we'll be able to put all of that support for young people on there and get that out as well. And hopefully bring schools, colleges, employers, providers all together to give these young people an even better footing, because it's great that it's happening in pockets, but you're right, Steve, it needs embedding across our county, because I don't know about you, but my youngest is 16, you know, cancelled GCSEs, cancelled prom, not quite got a place at college yet because they're all in a bit of limbo about when they start. It's a testing time for them. Her qualifications are going to be guessed this year. You know, there's a structure to that guesstimate, but all the same, it's now knocked down for the first time in a long time on the effort those kids put in. So there's going to be some challenges going forward, and I think sticking together is better than trying to do it separately. I thoroughly love the stuff that you guys do, and I can't thank you enough for being on with us this week, Steve. I'm going to have you back, and I'm going to get Positive Footprints. We'll get Leslie on next week, and we'll have a good chat with Leslie, and she can share a bit more about that amazing work that's getting done.
Thank you. Thanks again, Lisa, and I'll see you soon in the flesh.
No problem. Steve Newsham, thank you so much for joining us on this week's Business Bites.
See you, Lisa. Bye.
Bye-bye.